Welcome, operatives, to the Corporate Files Lab. Case File 014, today's intelligence briefing. The waste hegemony.
Right.
Look, we're doing a deep dive into the geopolitics of trash today. You toss a plastic bottle into the blue bin, you wipe your hands, you feel that tiny ping of environmental virtue, and you just move on with your day.
Yeah, you think the problem is solved.
Exactly. The slate is wiped clean, you've sent it, away.
But the intelligence we're analyzing today makes it very clear that the whole era of away is entirely dead.
It's completely over.
Right. The blue bin sitting in your kitchen,
Yeah.
It's not the green tool we've been led to believe it is. It functions much more as a Western ritual of conscience.
The psychological pass.
Exactly. It gives
Yeah.
high-income nations a way to just ignore the massive volume of their daily waste production.
Yeah.
When you actually trace the physical journey of that plastic bottle, the illusion falls apart incredibly fast.
It's grim. We're looking at a stack of geopolitical intelligence reports and international policy briefs today. We're investigating this multi-billion-dollar global waste trade that operates entirely in the shadows.
And it's a system on the brink.
Right. The whole international recycling system is facing a global collapse. And to understand why the walls are closing in, we really have to look at the cold economics of plastic itself.
Yeah, we have to start with this concept of the circular mirage. You hear circular economy everywhere.
Constantly, the corporate utopia.
Right, this vision where a plastic bottle gets melted down and perfectly becomes a new bottle, just looping infinitely. But the physics and the economics of plastic, they just do not allow for that.
Because of the polymers, right?
Exactly. Plastics are made of these long polymer chains. Every single time you subject that material to the intense heat required to melt it down, those chains break. They shorten.
So the material is fundamentally degrading every time it goes through the system.
Yeah, it's not recycling, it's downcycling. A pristine food-grade container might get melted into a cloudy plastic park bench, or maybe synthetic carpet fibers.
Right.
But the quality drops so rapidly that after just 1 or 2 cycles, those chains are too short for commercial use. It ends up in an incinerator or a landfill anyway. It's a downward spiral.
Not a perfect circle at all.
Not at all. And then, you add the financial reality on top of that physical limitation.
Okay, let's unpack this because the intelligence briefs highlight a massive market distortion. In 2024 alone, governments worldwide provided $43 billion in subsidies to the fossil fuel industry.
$43 billion?
Yeah. And since virgin plastic is basically a petroleum product, those subsidies make brand new plastic what the reports classify as a predatory commodity.
Because it's just so cheap to produce.
Exactly. It's basically like trying to sell someone a rusty refurbished bicycle for $100 when the government is subsidizing brand new top-of-the-line bucks so they only cost $10.
Right.
No rational business is going to choose the recycled option.
They won't. It costs a company significantly less money to just buy perfectly clear, highly durable virgin plastic than to pay for the labor and the energy to, collect, sort, wash, melt, and pelletize old degraded plastic.
And the data completely backs that up. In the U.S., the actual rate of plastic recycling has plummeted to, roughly 5 or 6%?
Yeah, 5 or 6%, which is basically a rounding error. And that structural market failure birthed a system of waste hegemony.
Define that for the operatives.
Sure. Wealthy nations in the global north wanted to maintain their own domestic ecological purity, right? But they couldn't afford the exorbitant cost of actually processing their own waste.
Because the economics don't work.
Exactly. So they utilized their economic leverage to externalize that environmental debt to the global south.
Which brings up a huge question. If the economics of recycling have always been this upside down, and we're really only recycling 5% of this stuff, how did we manage to hide the rest of the trash for 30 years?
By loading it onto cargo ships?
Right. Out of sight.
For decades, the global release valve for all this consumption was China. Up until recently, China acted as the world's primary dumping ground. They were absorbing nearly 45% of the globe's total plastic waste.
The pre-2018 numbers in these reports are just staggering. China was taking in 95% of the EU's collected plastic scrap and 70% from the U.S.
And it was driven by cold economics. Think about the logistics of international trade. You have these colossal cargo ships packed with consumer electronics and clothing traveling from Chinese manufacturing hubs to Western ports.
And they have to go back.
Right. Once they unload in LA or Rotterdam, they have to sail back. Instead of sending empty containers across the Pacific, shipping companies offered rock-bottom freight rates to fill them with Western waste.
So the transport cost was basically zero?
Practically zero. And it provided dirt-cheap raw material for China's booming manufacturing sector. They'd sift through our trash, pull out the usable scraps, and turn them into cheap goods to sell right back to us.
Until the geopolitical shockwave hit. The briefs call it the geopolitical guillotine. In 2018, China enacted Operation National Sword.
And the way they executed it was brilliant, honestly.
Because they didn't just ban imports outright.
No, they didn't issue a blanket ban. That would violate trade agreements. Instead, they implemented a 0.5% contamination limit on all imported recycling bales.
Wait, 0.5%? So if you or I accidentally left, like a bit of yogurt in a plastic cup, we were actually contaminating entire international shipping containers.
You were. What's fascinating here is the mechanics of that 0.5% rule. It was a masterclass in trade policy. In the West, we use single-stream recycling. You throw your paper, your glass, your aluminum, and your unwashed yogurt cups into the exact same bin.
And the sanitation truck just crushes it all together.
Yeah. Under hydraulic pressure. So that tablespoon of yogurt explodes and coats the cardboard. The automated optical sorters at our recycling facilities cannot perfectly clean that mess. It is physically impossible to get a mixed bale of trash to be 99.5% pure.
So by setting the legal standard that high, China effectively banned Western waste without technically banning it.
Exactly. Operation National Sword established what analysts now call sovereignty over salvage. China ran the numbers. They realized the severe health and environmental costs, the air pollution from burning the unrecyclable plastic, the toxic ash in the soil, heavy metals in the groundwater. It all vastly outweighed the economic benefits of cheap scrap.
So they just slammed the door shut.
Yeah.
And the fallout was immediate. Imports to China dropped by 99.1% almost overnight.
Millions of tons of Western garbage suddenly sitting on cargo ships with nowhere to dock.
Right, because trash collection in New York doesn't just stop because Beijing changed a policy. So where did it all go?
It flooded into smaller, less equipped nations. The global waste brokers panicked and redirected the ships to countries with lower labor costs and less environmental oversight. The reports refer to them as pollution havens.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Turkey is a prime example in the data. After the China ban, Turkey saw a 200-fold increase in plastic waste imports coming out of Europe.
And the ground reality is brutal. Human Rights Watch documented massive illegal dumping and toxic open-air burning in places like the Adana province.
Because the bales were so contaminated, right?
Yeah, local brokers would pull out the few valuable pieces and literally set fire to the rest in open fields. Local populations started getting severe respiratory illnesses from the fumes.
And the exact same predatory pivot happened in Southeast Asia. Between 2021 and 2023, Malaysia was importing an average of 1.4 billion kilograms of plastic waste annually. Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, they were totally inundated.
Their infrastructure just buckled. They weren't built to handle the West's overflow.
Which triggered this massive political resistance, the birth of eco-nationalism. This stopped being a quiet logistics issue and became a highly publicized fight over national pride.
Garbage politics.
Exactly. And the seminal moment was in 2019 with the Philippines. President Rodrigo Duterte publicly threatened to declare war against Canada over 103 shipping containers.
Over mislabeled trash.
Right. They were legally marked as recyclable plastics, but customs officials opened them and found rotting household garbage, used adult diapers. Duterte went on TV and told Canada, "Eat it if you want to, your garbage is coming home," and physically chartered a ship to sail it back to Vancouver.
That confrontation was the turning point. It really marks the end of waste colonialism. The Global South stopped seeing Western waste as an economic resource and started treating it as an environmental attack.
So they're fighting back. And they aren't just using flat bans, which smugglers can get around. They're using sin tariffs to extract geopolitical rent.
Yeah, Pigouvian taxes. The economic theory is that if a transaction creates a negative externality damage to a third party, you tax it an amount equal to the cost of the damage.
So if a container of contaminated plastic will cost a Malaysian city $10,000 in cleanup,
the government slaps a $10,000 tariff on it at the border. They're turning their border control into an environmental shield, forcing the West to pay the actual unsubsidized cost of its own residue.
okay, so the Global South is calling in the markers. They're building tariff walls. China is out. The clock is ticking. What is the West actually doing with its daily mountain of trash right now?
They're pivoting to a highly controversial technological fix, and it creates a dangerous new financial trap for local governments. The industry calls it waste to energy, or WTE.
Which is just a sanitized term for building a giant incinerator.
It is incineration, yeah. Rebranded as clean, renewable energy.
Yeah.
And the WTE market is exploding, projected to hit $43 billion by 2026.
Massive multinational corporations dominating the space.
Right. They approach these panicked city councils and offer to take the trash, burn it at extremely high temperatures, and use the heat to generate electricity for the grid.
But the academic journals outline a huge catch here: the lock-in effect.
It's insidious.
These plants cost hundreds of millions to build, so the operators force municipalities to sign take-or-pay contracts lasting 20 to 50 years.
Meaning the city is legally obligated to deliver a guaranteed minimum tonnage of garbage every single year.
That's insane. That sounds like signing a 30-year gym contract where you are legally penalized if you actually lose weight.
That's exactly what it is.
If a city succeeds in reducing waste, or they recycle more, they violate the contract. The incinerator company will sue them for millions in financial penalties for failing to produce enough garbage.
It fundamentally requires an endless supply of waste just to remain solvent. The literature calls this accumulation by dispossession. These corporations privatize the municipal waste stream to feed their furnaces.
They need the burn energy.
Yeah, the high BTU value found in plastics and cardboard. So they actively dismantle local, informal, circular economies. Independent recyclers get pushed out because the incinerator legally needs every scrap of combustible material to hit its margins.
Garbage isn't a problem to solve anymore. It's a legally mandated fuel source. But even with these incinerators, the West is drowning. They can't burn or bury at all. And the policy briefs show a massive regulatory cliff rapidly approaching right now in 2026.
Right, 2026 is when the music stops for the global waste trade.
A cascading series of international regulations hitting almost simultaneously.
Look at the timeline. February 2026, Malaysia proposes a strict 6-month moratorium on all waste imports due to massive anti-corruption probes. They're arresting officials bribed by smuggling cartels.
Then, October 2026, the UK launches its digital waste tracking service.
Which is a huge shift in digital sovereignty. Historically, brokers used paper manifests. Extremely easy to forge. You pack a container with toxic sludge, slap a paper on it saying clean paper, and ship it.
But the UK system creates a product passport.
Exactly. Total digital footprint, tracking the material from the exact moment it's collected through every facility down to its verified disposal. It's designed to completely eliminate waste, crime, and mislabeling.
And then the heaviest blow, November 21, 2026. The EU implements an uncompromising ban on exporting plastic waste to any non-OECD country for at least 2.5 years.
They are legally severing their own release valve.
And all of this is happening while the UN Global Plastic Treaty negotiations are at a total deadlock.
The geopolitical fracture lines are so clear there. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have the high-ambition coalition nations like Rwanda, Norway, fighting for hard caps on the production of virgin plastic.
Their logic being, you can't fix a flooding bathroom by mopping the floor. You have to turn off the faucet.
Right. But on the other side, you have major petrostates and multinational plastic producers. They are strictly pushing for downstream solutions. More incinerators, better recycling. They argue capping production cripples global economic growth.
And look, we're analyzing this impartially, but the sheer intractability of that deadlock just proves how volatile this issue is. The whole international community is fighting over who gets left holding the bag.
Because the walls are closing in. The landfill state is no longer a passive dumping ground. It's an active political agent.
So what does this all mean for you, the operatives listening? The era of out of sight, out of mind is officially over. We started by looking at that blue bin, which turned out to be a psychological mirage subsidized by the Global South.
We saw China's geopolitical guillotine.
The rise of eco-nationalism, the financial snare of those WTE incinerators. And now we are staring at the 2026 regulatory cliff. The West is about to drown in its own residue if it doesn't figure out how to reduce consumption.
Your daily domestic routines are tethered directly to international diplomacy. Next time you toss a cup in a bin, you are participating in a highly volatile global supply chain. Treaties, border tariffs, digital passports.
It transforms local waste management into a critical arm of foreign policy.
It really does. And I want to leave you with one final thought from the intelligence files. It highlights the absolute fragility of our sanitary civilization. What's the data point? Well, we conceptualize waste as something we push outward, right? We expel it.
Yeah.
But what happens when the global supply chain snaps and we lose the ability to manage it even locally? In March 2026, there was a maritime conflict that led to a major blockade in the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
That blockade disrupted the shipping lanes for naphtha. Naphtha is a highly flammable petrochemical precursor needed to make specific types of plastic.
And South Korea relies on imported naphtha.
Heavily. They need it to manufacture the government-mandated disposal bags required for municipal waste collection.
Wait, you literally cannot throw your trash away in South Korea without using those specific bags?
Correct. So because of a distant maritime blockade in the Middle East, supermarkets across South Korea completely sold out of these bags. And without them, municipal waste collection in ultramodern cities like Seoul completely ground to a halt.
Just stopped entirely.
Trash simply piled up in the streets of a modern metropolis because of a shipping delay thousands of miles away. If a distant maritime conflict can literally stop a major city from picking up its own garbage, how resilient is our society, really?
Something for you to think about the next time you take out the trash and expect the slate to be wiped clean. Case file closed. The bigger the empire, the harder the fall. Stay ahead of the curve. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your intelligence analysis in the comments. Your contribution is vital to this lab. New briefings available every Saturday.
You've been listening to Corporate Files Lab, briefings on AI, business, and geopolitics.